My recommendation would be to not apologize anymore, because when you continue to say, I'm sorry you feel that way and this and that, if she's already rejected your apologies, I can promise you, your I'm sorries will just be insulting to her at this point. She will download that as more insincerity. Save yourself the breath. A better line might be, I understand that even though I didn't intend to hurt you, it hurt anyway. And what can I do to help? That's your line. Remove I'm sorry from your vocabulary. Yeah. Here's the new line. I didn't intend to do that particular thing, but I understand it hurts you anyway. What can I do to help?
And I have a message to the neurotypical spouses out there. You probably have tried to deliver a good message, and for whatever reason, your spouse on the autism spectrum either didn't fully understand you, or didn't listen to you, or didn't retain very well, or didn't follow through very well, and so you just assumed that he simply didn't care. But what's more likely going on if he has ASD level 1 is he has difficulties with processing information, and he's also a slow processor. People on the autism spectrum have problems processing information from one or more of their 7 sensory systems, which, as you know, would be sight, balance, touch, movement, smell, taste, and hearing. Now, these processes take place at an unconscious level, and they work together with attention and learning, and each system has specific receptors that pick up information that's relayed to the brain. Now, the sensory characteristics of people on the autism spectrum are often responsible for their processing difficulties, negative behaviors, and unpleasant emotions. Now, here's the most important point. The sensory systems are also involved in what we call emotional processing. People use their emotions as a sensory system too. But with people on the autism spectrum, they tend to vary in their ability to process information emotionally, in part because at least one other sense often doesn't work well. For example, it'd be difficult for a person with auditory processing disorder to figure out whether a person's voice suggests friendliness or meanness. Also, many people on the autism spectrum have a hard time using their emotions or desires to process information and act appropriately in certain interpersonal settings. Now, processing is a system that helps the person select, prepare, and begin to interpret incoming information. People on the autism spectrum who have difficulty with processing may have a range of problems related to regulating the use of incoming information. Now, there are 5 processing skills, which include satisfaction control, focal maintenance, depth and detail of processing, cognitive activation, and saliency determination. Now, these are fancy terms, but we're going to look at each one in turn. Satisfaction control involves the person's ability to allocate enough attention to activities or topics of moderate or low levels of interest. People on the spectrum with poor satisfaction control have difficulty concentrating on activities that are not exciting enough. Focal maintenance allows the person to focus on important information for the appropriate period of time, but people on the spectrum may not concentrate long enough on some things and may concentrate too long on others. Depth and detail of processing controls how intensely the person can concentrate on highly specific data. It enables them to focus deeply enough to recognize and remember necessary details. But people on the spectrum tend to remember a lot of details that relate to their area of special interest, but may not remember much outside of that interest. Cognitive activation is a form of active processing that connects new information to what has already been learned through prior knowledge and experience. Now, people who are inactive processors are unable to connect to prior knowledge to assist their understanding of new information. And on the other hand, overactive processors are reminded of too much prior knowledge, making it difficult for them to maintain focus. So your spouse on the spectrum will tend to either be an inactive processor or an overactive processor. And lastly was saliency determination, which involves selecting which incoming information is the most important. People on the spectrum who have difficulty with this control may be distracted by things that are not relevant, and they may miss important information that you present. So how would you know for sure whether your autistic spouse has difficulty processing information? Well, here are some telltale signs. If he has difficulty in this area, he'll have difficulty distinguishing between what is important and what isn't. He may finish processing what you're saying before you've finished expressing your ideas. He may focus for too brief of a period, or he may focus for too long of a period. He may focus too superficially or too deeply on information presented. He may have an idea of what he wants to say in his mind, but when he attempts to share the idea with you, it doesn't come out right. He may have difficulty connecting new information with information already known. He may have problems shifting focus from one subject or activity to another. He will often have trouble picking up the main idea in conversations with you, and he may have to repeat himself several times before you understand what he's saying. He may miss a lot of things that are obvious to you, the NT wife, and he may only pay attention to exciting information or highly stimulating activities. Also, you may find that he will process one word that you're saying, but then thinks of something completely unrelated to what you're saying. He may process too little or too much information, and he may try to understand the meaning of each word that you say to him rather than being able to automatically understand the whole gist and general meaning of the sentence that you deliver. So, before you jump to the conclusion that he doesn't listen, doesn't understand, doesn't retain, and doesn't follow through because he just doesn't care, just remember this little conversation we had here about difficulties with processing information in the autistic brain.
It's not just a neurotypical world. So let's just go ahead and throw that thing in the toilet right now. Mm-hmm. It's not just a neurotypical world. There's more autistic people than we know. In fact, there's probably millions and millions of autistic people that never crossed their mind that they had it. They never even thought about getting an assessment. So believe me, people with autism are crawling all over the planet. So let's just put that myth to rest right now. Huge population of people that are autistic. And the way that you behave is perfectly normal, given that unique way of thinking. And you are very normal unless you're over there in the neurotypical group, and then you're not normal to them. They're not normal to you. So we could just play that game all day long if we wanted to. She can't have it both ways. She can't complain about you lacking empathy, and at the same time she lacks empathy herself. That doesn't wash. This is not just a neurotypical world. In fact, it's more of an autistic world than we know by a long shot, and it's growing by leaps and bounds every day. The question is, do you have any tactics for me to practice to be more in tune with her or more present to anticipate her needs wants? I always feel like I'm on high alert and trying to be perceptive, but I seem to always get blindsided by things like this. Well, if she is wanting you to be more in tune and anticipate her wants and needs, then she hasn't been watching any of my videos, because at the risk of sounding sarcastic, that's an unreasonable expectation, because one of the things that comes with ASD level 1, 2 and 3 too, is due to mind blindness, alexithymia, executive function deficits, and anxiety, the person on the autism spectrum has a hard time predicting outcomes. Okay, so with things that involve social and emotional nuances and social skills, in this case, he will have a hard time predicting outcomes and predicting the possible likely future. See, you can predict that tomorrow morning the sun's going to come up. But your NT wife with high in social and emotional intelligence, she can predict what so-and-so is going to say in response to what she is going to say. She already knows how this person is going to respond and almost nails it ahead of time. So you're not going to be able to, quote, anticipate her needs or wants. So your wife, hope she's watching, she needs to tell you what she needs and wants instead of making you guess. I don't care about labeling you. What I do care about is for him, whoever he is, if he thinks he has it, to hunt up some kind of an informal quiz online, look at the traits and go, yeah, I have some of those traits for sure, and the traits that I do have of the list, they're definitely causing a problem in the marriage. That's really all I need as a therapist, is just some admission that, yeah, I have some of those traits and it's causing a problem. That's all I need. And I'm sure in her mind, you're an insensitive, selfish, uncaring, narcissistic bastard, which is the false assumption that I was referring to that the NT's engage in at the beginning of this call. Now, I'm not faulting her. You know, I'm not saying that that was dumb and you shouldn't have done that. She didn't know what she was dealing with. And the NTs have grossly underestimated the severity of ASD level 1. They think he walks fine, talks fine, works fine, but when it comes to me, his significant other, suddenly he's a full-blown autistic. That's because her social skills and emotional skills are way up here. Yours are way down here because this is a developmental disorder. They use that term for a very good reason. Developmentally, the social and emotional brain is underdeveloped compared to the chronological age. She's also very high in social and emotional skills, very high in social and emotional needs. Again, you are low. And she's taking this as a personal insult. She cannot like it. That's fine. Don't have to like it. But I'm going on record as, and I'm not saying you can't be a dick, but the other 80% of good, and maybe even 90% of the problems she has with you are directly related at some level to the traits of the disorder. You are not a narcissist. You're not insensitive, uncaring, selfish. You're not somebody who has no empathy, no emotions. You're a person who has some blind spots. That's it. And if she doesn't get it, if she can't figure that part out and accept it, then I'll, heaven help you. Heaven help you. I think it's important for us to know why we're here and why you're having problems, so that maybe you could extend a little bit of grace and mercy. I'm not asking you to let him off the hook. Keep him on the hook. Because as I've said many times, having traits of a disorder is no license to go around spraying on people like a skunk. So this is not about getting him off the hook, but this is about understanding that some of his behavior is not purposeful, and this is why it causes so much problems when you try to get him to get it. Because I can't think of a worst possible combination as far as a husband and wife duo than the NT wife and the ASD man with respect to conflict resolution. That is, it makes conflict resolution so terribly hard because she, the NT, is very verbal, can pick up on nonverbal cues. He's not verbal, he doesn't pick up on nonverbal cues. She likes to talk thoroughly through the relationship problems. He tries to avoid talking about relationship problems, raises his anxiety, and then he can't listen or understand or retain or follow through. And you might find that when you have really pushed to get him to get it, he's done some kind of aversion, a meltdown or shutdown. You pick up on emotions and emotional cues very easily. He's alexithymic, and we already know what that means. You will want to come up with a problem-solving method that works for the both of you. He's more inclined to want to be independent and come up with his own solution. When you're under stress, you reach out for support, either through him, maybe other family members or friends. He's the opposite. When he's stressed out, he either gets angry at what he perceives as a source of stress, or he tries to avoid the situation that he thinks is causing the stress. So whereas you reach out and try to connect, he goes inward and tries to disconnect. So you can see why we have such problems in the area of conflict resolution. That's not, again, to say, oh, well, he can't help it. Just, overlook it and deal with it. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying it would be helpful, and this is a two-way street. He needs to extend some grace and mercy as well. It would be helpful if the two of you, given the fact that you're almost wired 180 degrees opposite, that you could show a little bit of compassion towards one another in those heated moments where there is this disconnect, both emotionally and cognitively, realizing that we're not purposely trying to injure one another. We're just, I speak French, you speak German, and we just got to realize that sometimes these heated arguments and fights are really the result of a different brain wiring, not so much that one person is purposely trying to be hurtful. Nobody has asked me this question, but I was thinking about this a little bit about a half an hour ago when I was getting ready for this call. And I thought, what if somebody asked me, a good question to ask would be, if you could come up with a number one tip I know there's multiple problems and hopefully there's multiple solutions, but if there was just one, what would be at the top of the list? My answer would be, it would be good for you to start looking through the lens of, we'll just call it emotional immaturity. It's a ASD level 1 and 2 and 3 really is a developmental disorder. Developmentally, what does that mean? Developmentally, he's emotionally immature. Chronologically, he's 45. Emotionally, he's not much beyond a 14 or 15-year-old at best. Maybe 16 if you're lucky. Some NT wives go, no, try again, how about 8 years old? And I'm only talking about when it comes to things that have social and emotional nuances. When it comes to his special interest or what he's an expert in or work or whatever, he is by all definition a neurotypical. ASD level 1 is a disorder of social skills and a disorder of emotional literacy. But when he is doing something that he's interested in and he's high IQ, for all intents and purposes, he is neurotypical. But when it comes to anything that's laden with social and emotional intricacies, which is you or the children, or dealing with other people, maybe not so much coworkers at work when they're just talking about work, he is emotionally immature. And I don't like the term child because as soon as I say, well, you got to treat him like a child. Well, then she's, well, I'm already feel like a mother. So I want to bail out on that framework. Now, I'm not saying we'll give him a pass, but I am saying whenever you're going to have a discussion with him about something that's going to be fairly involved in the social and emotional sense, it would be best to think, okay, I have underestimated this disorder. And so how can I word things, not to treat him like a child, but how can I word things to this person whose emotional brain is stunted? And that's a huge paradigm shift, and some NT ladies aren't willing to do this because he should be able to do better. He's an adult. He's supposed to know these things. As soon as you start throwing around those terms, should and supposed, or he should not do this, or he's not supposed to, as soon as you go down that path and basically ignore what I just said, it's only going to hurt you.